Let me unmute myself. Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here today. My name is Carissa Kubart. If you don't know me, I'm a person who stutters. I've been involved with friends for a long time. I think I've come for the past 15 years. I love it so much, and I'm really excited to be hosting the keynote today with the author Jordan Scott. Thank you for coming today, Jordan. I'm so happy to see you in person on here. Well, not really in person, but on Zoom. We actually reached out to Jordan originally to maybe come to the kids group that Friends has every Saturday, because obviously he wrote this amazing children's book that he's going to be reading to us today. It's called I Talk Like a River. But then we were thinking about how really your story, Jordan, touches the lives of anyone who's ever been impacted by stuttering. And so today we have kids who stutter, teens who stutter, adults who stutter, parents and SLPs who I think will all really love your story and want to ask you questions. So thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to introduce you right now. So Jordan is a poet and a children's author. Jordan Scott has written 5 poetry books and was the recipient of the 2018 Latner Writers Trust Poetry Prize for his contributions to Canadian poetry. Scott's debut children's book, illustrated by Sydney Smith, I Talk Like a River, is a New York Times Best Children's Book of 2020. Wow. So thank you so much, Jordan, for being here. And the floor is yours. You can share your screen, I think.
Okay, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the invitation, and it's wonderful to see everyone. I'm going to start today with a reading from my children's book. I talk like a river. So I'm just going to share my screen here and see if this will work. Let me see here. Make it big. There we go. Can everybody see that? Thumbs up. Yes. Okay. So this is my first children's book. As Crystal said, I've written a lot of the poetry books before. Particularly, I wrote a book titled Blurt, and that's all about the poetics of stuttering, which I can talk about afterwards if you'd like. But this is my first children's book, and it's based off an experience that happened to me when I was a child. Well, I talk like a river. I wake up each morning with the sounds of words all around me. The p for pine tree outside my bedroom window. Yeah, k for the crow and its branches. For the moon fading in the morning sky. I wake up each morning with the sounds of words all around me, and I can't say them all. The puh in pine tree grows roots inside my mouth and tangles my tongue. The k is a crow that sticks in the back of my throat. The in moon dusts my lips with a magic that makes me only mumble. I wake up in the morning with these word sounds stuck in my mouth. I stay quiet as a stone. I eat my porridge without a peep. I get ready for the day without a word. At school, I hide in the back of class. I hope I don't have to talk. When my teacher asks me a question, all my classmates turn and look. They don't see a pine tree sticking out from my lips instead of a tongue. They don't hear a crow caw caw from inside my throat. They don't hide their eyes from the moonlight that shines from my open mouth. All they hear is how I don't talk like them. All they see is how strange my face looks, and that I can't hide how scared I am. My mouth isn't working. It's full with words of the morning. Mornings are always hard, but this one's especially tough. I'm more stuck than ever. My teacher says we all have to talk about our favorite place in the world. Today is my turn, but my mouth just isn't working, and I want to go home. My dad picks me up from school. It's just a bad speech day, he says. Let's go somewhere quiet. My dad takes me to the river. We walk along the shore looking for colorful rocks and water bugs. It feels good to be quiet and alone with my dad, but I can't stop thinking about my bad speech day. All those eyes watching my lips twist and twirl, all those mouths giggling and laughing. I feel a storm in my belly. My eyes fill with rain. My dad sees I am sad and pulls me close. He points to the river and says, "See how that water moves? That's how you speak." I look at the water, bubbling, churning, whirling, and crashing. My dad says I talk like a river. This is what I like to remember to help stop myself from crying. I talk like a river, or from not wanting to speak at all. I talk like a river. When the words around me are hard to say, I think of the proud river, whirling, bubbling, churning, and crashing. And I also think of the calm river beyond the rapids, where the water is smooth and glistening. This is how my mouth moves. This is how I speak. Even the river stutters like I do. I wake up in the morning with the sounds of words all around me. I go to school and tell the class about my favorite place in the world. I talk about the river, and I talk like a river. Okay, thank you everyone for listening.
Jordan, I loved it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jordan. That was amazing. I've read your story to lots of kids who stutter, and it was just so amazing to hear it in your own voice. That was really great. Thank you so
Well,
much.
thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I
So
kind
if
of wish
people
we could do this
can
again.
start to type your questions into the chat. I don't see any questions yet, but everyone's saying how amazingly beautiful it was. Incredible, so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that and writing this. I'll start by asking a question to Jordan. What inspired you to write this story?
So this was a story that happened to me when I was a kid, and it was a very profound moment for me. So I've always thought about it, and I've always wanted to write about it because it's given me a lot of strength throughout the years to be able to. I remember the first time my dad told me that, and I spent like just kind of, it felt like months afterwards always going out into the woods and looking at everything else that moved like my mouth did. Like I became obsessed. Like, look at those leaves in the wind, or look at that snail on the ground. And so I would think that really helped me to see my stutter as natural and part of the world. And it gave me a lot of comfort. So I've always wanted to write about that and share it with others.
Thank you, Jordan. It's so cool to hear that it's a true story and that what your dad said, it's such a big impact on you. I think that
Mm,
one of the amazing things about this being out in the world, one of the many amazing things, is that it shows the impact a parent can have if they, model that it's okay to stutter and
mhm.
are so supportive in that kind of way. I love it. Thank you so much. So there's lots of questions now in the chat. So Laura wants to know how old you were when you had this experience.
I think I was in grade 7, grade 6 or grade 7. So I forget the age tied into those grades, but grade 6 or grade 7.
That's really cool. John Hendrickson wants to know, what age did you get comfortable reading in public? How did you become comfortable?
Yeah, thanks for the question, John. So two things. My 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 mother always had me sign up for public speaking contests, but it was so horrible. It was so horrible. But she made me uh, rehearse and rehearse and rehearse so that I was fluent. And I always felt very uncomfortable with that, because I felt like I was being praised for that. If that makes sense, that like everybody in school knew that I stutter, and then I would give these speeches where I didn't, and everybody would be so you proud of me for that, and that I felt uncomfortable. So it wasn't until I was in just after high school where I started reading poetry to crowds of people, and I would just let myself go and just talk how I talk, speak how I speak, and that was when I gained a comfort in really sharing uh, the way that I talk and my stutter.
That's so cool. I feel like a lot of people can probably connect to that
Mhm.
in this room. I'm wondering, Jordan, have you ever been in a room with this many people who stutter in it before?
No,
I was wondering. It's pretty special.
it
Um,
is special. Mhm.
yeah. Ava writes, I relate to this, and the river was a great analogy. Um, Adam wants to know, the boy in the book, did you look like him as a child?
I don't think so. I think Sydney, the person who did the artwork, he specifically didn't want to see pictures of me as a child. So, but strangely, it kind of looks like my dad.
Oh,
Mm.
that's interesting. Jeremy says you are an inspiration to all of us. I hope that all kids who stutter can become strong and confident like you. Um,
Thank you, Jeremy.
Hani wants to know, how do you think about your stuttering differently now as an adult as compared to when you were a child?
Mm. I think as a child, I was much more I was much more hesitant and hesitant to speak, and maybe more nervous, or even sometimes I guess ashamed to speak. And now those feelings haven't gone away, but they're not as strong within me. I feel these days a lot more confident to speak to strangers, or at restaurants, stuff like this.
Cool. Sammy and Allie, two kids who come to the kids group, they want to know, what advice do you have for people who stutter?
Well, it's a really great question. Thank you, Sammy and Ali. I think I mean, I can speak for me. I think for me, it was always important for me to just accept the way that I speak and the way that I sound. That was an important part for me. And really, if I wanted to be more fluent in a situation, I would do that only for me, not for anybody else, if that makes sense. Like, I would really just let myself be a guide, and be proud of the way that I speak.
I love that. Seth, who's an adult who stutters, says, Jordan, it was hard for me to talking about my stuttering when I was a kid, even to my parents at times. It sounds like talking to your dad about stuttering was easy. What about your dad made it easy to talk to him about stuttering?
That's a great question. I was just thinking about this the other day. Do you know what's really interesting? It's my dad never once talked about my stutter. Only in that one moment, and he never talks about it to this day. And it's not because he's ashamed of me, not at all. Not at all. I just really believe that he doesn't see it as a thing. He just never talked about it. And that made me feel actually really, really great, because I knew that he accepted me. He would listen to me. He'd never interrupt any of my sentences or finish my sentences. He'd always comfort me when I was upset, but it was never something that he spent any time talking about. And that made me feel very comfortable with him, and in my own skin.
Samuel has a quote here. He says, people who stutter have the inspirational opportunity to make the world listen. Benny and Doug, love that quote.
That's well said.
Yeah. Jeremy wants to know, any advice on what to say to people who make fun of your stutter, third graders in particular?
Yeah, I can say what I used to do when I was a kid, is, I mean, sometimes I didn't handle it very well, and other times I did. I just used to, for the most part, I wouldn't engage with those people. But if I felt that I had to, I would just say, I'm proud of the way that I speak. That's what I would say. Or I would just say something like, this is just how I talk, I stutter. And sometimes that really helps to stop that kind of thing. If you also feel confident and tell them what it is.
That's such great advice, Jordan. Mark O'Malley, another adult who stutters, wants to say, just wanted to say thank you for capturing the emotional internal world that many of us who stutter grew up with, and making that into a beautiful, important place.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Sammy and Allie want to know, did your dad help you feel better? If he did, how did he help?
My dad helped me feel better, because he would allow me to be quiet. So my dad would take me to a lot of hikes, or he'd take me fishing, or just for walks in the woods. And sometimes we'd be there for hours and he wouldn't say anything. And again, not because my dad's a very kind person, so he, he would he wouldn't that was just a real beautiful time for me, because I didn't have to talk, and that was okay. And that's one of the ways that he made me feel comfortable, because I got used to communicating with someone in a different way, and it allowed me. Um, it also allowed me to have a little bit of a break.
That's so lovely. Dougie wants to know, have you published any similar books related to stuttering?
Yeah, so I wrote a poetry book, and it's called Blurt, and it is I wrote that in 2006, 2008, and that was my first attempt to write what I call like a poetics of stuttering. So I tried to write a whole book that would um, that would show people who didn't stutter how it feels for someone who does. So, but I didn't talk about stuttering within the book. I just made a language sound beautiful and strange. And so that was my first, that was the first time I wrote about stuttering.
Amazing. I had no idea. I want to go out and buy that one too. Noah Thomas, another kid who stutters. Hi, Noah. He wants to know, where is the river located?
Oh, yeah, it's a great question, Noah. So I'll type it into the chat here. So this is the river. It's in British Columbia, so in BC. and that's in Canada, and it's called the Fraser River. And then there's another one that my dad would often take me to, and that one is called the Coquitlam River, and that's also in the same province in Canada.
So cool. I'm definitely gonna go there someday.
Yeah.
I'm the kind of person that would do that. I love. Okay. Karen Herring has a great question. She wants to know what helped you go from feeling embarrassed of stuttering to feeling so open and proud.
So I think the short answer is poetry and poets. The first time I read a poem out loud was for a group of poets at a writing workshop. And when I was finished reading, they had their reaction really empowered me, because what they saw was they saw the art and the beauty of stuttering, and how stuttering sounds, and what stuttering does to language, and in what stuttering does to how we think about language and speech and the body. And for them, and still to this day, they see the stutter as offering something so special to the world of poetry. So that's why I feel so confident. That changed my life, because then I saw myself as being able to give something unique, not only of myself, but to the whole, to a history of poetry, right? So that really helped. That really helped me a lot.
Amazing. I love that. John Albeck, who was one of the co-founders of Friends, he has a great idea. He said that for the kids who stutter, if there's anyone teasing you in class, you can bring the book, I Talk Like a River, as a show and tell, and tell them about it. And maybe
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll change the way they think about stuttering.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so great. So Dad's story, I guess he's a dad. He says, as a father of boys who stutter, this reading was extremely powerful to me. Do you have any age-specific advice for me as the guys grow into their teen years?
I think that I mean, I could just say what worked for me, and having and my dad, and I just reiterate that kind of quiet confidence, right? That my dad would listen really well, and allow me times to be sad, and for that to be okay. But then also, as I said, allow me those moments just to of quiet, just to collect myself and whatnot. And just he was always, and continues to be, like, just really proud of me as well. So I guess for him, stuttering was a part of our relationship, but it didn't define it.
Awesome. But Benny wants to know, is stuttering still a major challenge for you? And if so, how do you handle it?
So yes, stuttering is still a major challenge for me. I teach at university, so my life is kind of talking. How I handled it is on the first day of class, I tell my students I stutter, and we talk about that for a bit, and then it's never a problem. But it is still a continual challenge. Sometimes when I give poetry readings and stuff, and we talk about this, we talk about like the differences between writing poems about stuttering and then living with the stutter. Sometimes I say, sometimes I just want to just order a coffee without having to rehearse all the way down the block, right? So it definitely still is a challenge, but I try to be as open as I can with other people, and also take it easy on myself too.
Alex Rumpf would like to know, what is the moment that you realized you had somewhat accepted your stutter?
I think probably after that book of poetry that I wrote, because the first book of poetry that I wrote, the first book that I ever did, I was still in that habit of rehearsing everything, memorizing it, so I wouldn't stutter as much publicly. And then with the second book, I said, that's enough of that. And that's how that's when I think I really kind of came into it.
Yeah, it's so powerful, right? Just like letting your stuttering out and you're free to just talk.
Absolutely.
That's such a good message. Jack, one of the great kids in our group, says he has a quote too. All you have to do is to see how people are different is look. Oh, it's from the Wonder movie.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Awesome, Jack.
Yeah, thank you. And Lark, another kid from the group, would like to know, oh, that's his nickname. When you gave the speech about the river, how did you feel? Ooh, yeah, when you were a kid.
I was really I was nervous, but it felt really good. It felt good to do. I still remember it, and it felt, I was nervous. I was sweaty, but I felt but it felt good, because I felt like my classmates knew who I was, and that river was actually really close to my school. So when we talked about it afterwards, that was also really really, cool because everybody knew where that river was.
Yeah, nice connection.
Hmm.
Jeremiah Kitchen says, amazing book, Jordan, very powerful and effective. Thanks so much for sharing it with us.
Thank you.
Heather Grossman is wondering, any chance we can hear a poem?
Oh, I don't even have any of those with me, or else I would.
Maybe in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Karen Herring says, I love the idea of having language sound beautiful and strange.
Hmm.
So Sammy and Ali are wondering, where and how do you publish your books?
So I have for my poetry books, I have a publisher in Toronto. Um, it's called Coach House Books. And then for my children's books, it's with Holiday House, which is in New York.
Cool. Jen has a great question. She's wondering, if you could go back in time and to talk to your 7th grade self, what would you say to him?
I'm not sure I would. I just think I would just say I would say just kind of keep that going. I think that I think that I would say that I'd say keep going and it gets better.
Keep going. I love that. Samuel wants everyone to know, if you stutter, that's okay, because what you say is worth repeating.
Hmm.
Angel says, so inspirational.
Mm.
Sammy and Allie have another question. They want to know, what's your favorite book that you wrote?
Oh, that's a tough one, Sammy and Ali. I think this one.
It's my favorite
I
so
think,
far.
yeah, I think I talk like a river is my favorite book.
Nice. Jack wants to know, what were some of your favorite poets as a younger person?
Oh, um, I really liked Lewis Carroll, who also stuttered. I like the poet um, I guess um, Cummings, because he did very strange things with language and words. And I really like the poet Susan Howe, who's still with us, but she has written about stuttering before too. So I love her work as well.
So cool.
Oh, and I love the poet Dennis Lee, who also writes children's books. He writes this book called I guess Alligator Pie, and that was my favorite book to read as a kid.
Alligator pie, cool. Drew wants to know, he says, amazing that you teach at a university. What subject do you teach?
I teach literature.
Very cool. Martin is asking, how do you deal with the impatience of others?
Hmm. That's a good question. Something that I do is uh, when people interrupt me, I often say no, that's not what I meant to say. That's what I usually do, and then I start my sentence again. That's my That's my thing.
Love it. McKenna, who's a teen, wants to know how did you feel when you published the book?
I felt personally, I felt really, really good, but also I guess I'm nervous because I wasn't sure how it would be received or who would read it. But I can say that it's been quite beautiful, and hard to say how it makes me feel. It's very overwhelming. So I'm really grateful for that.
Lucy, who is an adult who stutters, wants to know if you have any children.
I do. Yeah, I have 2 boys, 6 and 8, 6 and 8 years old.
That's awesome. Ava wants to know, do you think self-disclosing helps?
For me, it does. In particular, when in my job, I find that that it really helps. For me personally, it takes a lot of pressure off when when basically the first thing I say is that, and I talk about that, then I feel a lot more comfortable. But that's just me.
Yeah, me too. What advice would you give? This is from Samuel. What advice would you give a kid who stutters if they want to be an author? Samuel's a kid who stutters, who's super profound
Okay.
and awesome.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thanks, Samuel. I mean, I would read a lot. I would something that I used to do and still do is I like to read a lot and then find the authors and styles that really speak to me, that I really like. And then I'll read them even more carefully and try to absorb them as much as I can. I also really like writing journals a lot, writing down ideas, writing down my thoughts, and then once I have an idea, just spending time with it, allowing it to grow, that being okay with making mistakes and having to do things over again. Even if you write a whole story and you say, I don't like it, and then you start again, that's, for me, that's the real beauty in the process of writing. It's just you just keep going until you feel that it's right.
It's really helpful advice. Thanks. So Jack has another quote from Finding Nemo. He says, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. Just keep going.
Yeah, that's great, Zach.
That's great, Jack. Sammy and Allie want to know, where do you get your ideas for your books?
A lot of my ideas come from my life experience. That's where I get a lot of my ideas from. I think almost all of my books have like a little kernel or a little root of something that happened in my own life, and then I like to kind of make the story grow from there.
Cool. Kendra wants to know, are you planning to publish more books? And if so, what would you name them?
So I have a couple of books that I'm working on for children. So 2 more children's books. I'm not sure of their titles yet. One of the stories is about my friend Angela, who lives in Reykjavik in Iceland, and she has these remarkable relationships with glaciers, where she goes and she listens to them and she records their sounds. And so I'm writing a children's book about her. And I'm also writing another children's book about my childhood again, but with my Baba, who was Polish, and she didn't speak any English. And it was a similar experience that I had with my dad. She couldn't speak any English, and I didn't want to talk. So we just learned how to communicate through food and through picking up worms off the ground, because she had this really big, beautiful garden that she would grow her own food. So we go out and I'd pick up worms together and put them in the garden. So those are the 2 books that I'm working on for kids. And for adults, I'm working on a book right now that looks at the connections between stuttering and lying. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so exciting. I can't wait for all of those.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah. So going back to questions about your children, but
Mhm.
Benny wants to know if any of your children stutter.
No, my children don't stutter.
That was a good question, Benny. I was curious
Yeah,
too.
it was, yeah. It's something that I partly wrote the book for them to give them a way to relate with me and be able to talk about the way that I speak. We were sitting in that bed the other day, and I was reading a story to them, and I was getting really stuck on I was getting really stuck on a C. I just couldn't get it out. And my youngest son reaches over and kind of rubs the side of my head, and he says, "It's okay, Dad. You just talk like a river."
Oh.
Which I just thought was just like, oh my God. Yeah.
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 Wow. That's amazing. Whew. Um, there's I was worried we wouldn't have questions, but there's still so many more. It's so exciting. Drew wants to know, how have your students responded to your stuttering?
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, for the most part, really well. Really well. Sometimes you get the odd student who is not respectful, but I just usually ask those students if they have anything that they'd like to say, and that kind of stops it. But I would say, for the most part, for the most part, it's not a concern.
Mhm. Kendall says that's amazing. Sammy and Ellie have questions about like how can they read your book? Is it in the library? So some other people have asked about where they can purchase your book. Where do you like to send people to buy it?
So I guess the local bookstores is also is a good spot, but the press is Holiday House.
Holiday House.
Yeah. And then there's also your library as well.
Perfect. I hope a lot of people go out and buy it. So Dougie is curious to know, have any publishers held your stuttering against you?
It's actually been the opposite. I think a lot of publishers are very interested in that story, in that perspective of the world, and that relationship to to the body. They're very interested in that. I've only had positive experiences with publishers in that way.
That's so good to hear. So cool. This is interesting. Sammy and Allie want to know, do you know any other people who stutter?
Well, I do now, but before this, before meeting all of you, I never. Isn't that interesting? I'm just thinking about that right now. I've never I've never I've known anybody else who stuttered.
Wow. Well, you're part of our community now. I'm so
Yes,
happy
that's right.
that you're
Me
here.
too. Me too.
That's a really big thing. Yeah. So
Mhm.
I love for you to be able to hear more started voices other than just mine. So I'd like to open it up. I wanted to share that I did read I Talk Like a River to our kids group 2 weeks ago, and one of the really cool conversations that we had is I asked them, well, do you guys feel like you talk like a river? What do you feel like you talk like? And the kids had so many great ideas, and I could share them, but I'm wondering if any of the kids out there in this room want to unmute yourself and share with Jordan what you feel like you stutter like. Does anyone want to? You can just unmute yourself because I can't see all of you.
Sammy down there.
I stutter like ice, like an ice cube, because sometimes I'm cold and sometimes I'm bumpy. Yeah.
I love that. So Sammy says she stutters like an ice cube because sometimes it's smooth and sometimes it's bumpy. Is that what you said?
That's wonderful, Sammy. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Sammy and Allie. Jack wrote into the chat that he thinks he stutters like a roller coaster. That's another good analogy. Nara, go ahead. I see you raising your hand. Do you want to share?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
I stutter like a princess because I'm beautiful and I love princesses.
I love it. Yay. Nara stutters like a princess because she's beautiful. She loves princesses, and stuttering is beautiful too.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Great job. Thanks for sharing.
Does anybody else want to share? Look in the chat. Oh, George is wonderful. Oh, McKenna says she stutters fast like a cheetah. Samuel, the always profound Samuel says, I think I stutter like a mountain because it goes up, then one side goes down.
Yeah, that's great, Samuel.
Hi, Josephine. Go ahead. Can you say it again? Oh, I thought you were.
The only thing I stutter like is bumpy.
Bumpy. Yeah, there's a lot of things out there that are bumpy, right? Like Samuel said, mountains can be kind of bumpy. Dougie says, I feel like I stutter like a boulder because it is hard to get through. But if you take a look at the big picture, you can move around it. Good one, Dougie. Fortnite Master Lurk says, I stutter like a penguin because I repeat a lot. Great job. Awesome. Does anyone else want to talk? I guess we could really open it up to any age because you could say profound things about stuttering at any age. Does anyone else have an analogy or something they want to compare their stuttering to? Who wants to share? You can either share it in the chat or raise your hand or just unmute yourself. Jen says, Benny, I love it. Oh, I missed the toothpaste one. Sorry, Benny. Your stuttering is like toothpaste, Benny? That's so cool. I missed it in the chat over here. Lucy says, I stutter like a bunny. Is that because of the hopping, Lucy? Bouncing like a bunny? Jordan says, lovely. Awesome. All right. Is there anyone else who wants to share something with Jordan and actually say it out loud so Jordan can meet more of us? Go for it, Adam.
Jordan, I love that. Total inspiration, just like church. Total inspiration, just like church.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Rock on, son.
It was super inspirational, Jordan. Kendall says, I feel like I stutter like a rock slide because it's rocky.
Sometimes I stutter like the wind.
Yes, that's beautiful. I relate to that, Lucy. Thank you.
At our stuttering group, one of the kids said, I stutter like a shoe. I just walk through it. I love that. Another kid said, I stutter like a mountain because even though mountains are big and might get avalanches, the avalanches don't last and it makes the mountain kind of stronger. What do you think of that, Jordan? Okay, everyone.
Yeah, that's really wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Now you have friends who stutter. So true. Anything else in the chat? Everyone's saying, oh, nice, great. Oh, I stutter like a snake. Awesome. Yeah, because sometimes it comes out long and stretchy too, right?
You guys, is it okay if I say something? I don't know how to raise my hand. Sorry. I would say I stutter like an airplane because sometimes you're flying smooth, but then sometimes you hit some turbulence and it's not so smooth, but I feel like in the end it's usually all okay. So
that's awesome, Matt. Thanks, man.
No worries, man.
That's great.
Well, that's kind of perfect. Nice analogy. Awesome. Mackenzie says, I love this book and I'm going to bring it to school to read to my class. Oh my God, Mackenzie.
Oh, thank you, Mackenzie. Thank you.
It's true. The fact that this is available to teachers to read to their classes might change a whole generation of kids who stutter. To hear your story, it's so beautifully written. Tiffany says, I stutter like a rainstorm. Sometimes it's hard and I don't like it, but other times it's not so bad and beautiful things come from it, like this community. Awesome, Tiffany. I love that. Jackie says, I also stutter like a waterfall. It might be smooth for a while, and then suddenly you fall from the smooth waters and crash upon a rocky shore. Hani, who's an SLP who stutters in a school, she says, I'm definitely going to buy this and read to my students, both kids who stutter and kids who don't stutter. That's right. Everyone should hear this story. Thanks, Hani. Jordan says, I love that. Oh, great. Akia says, especially since I will be majoring in special ed this year for college, I will definitely be purchasing this book. Thank you so much, Jordan. Samuel says, I also stutter like snow because sometimes it doesn't even hit the ground and sometimes it's everywhere. Wow, these are so profound. McKenna says, I repeat a lot, so I'm fast like a cheetah. Cheetahs don't stop and keep running and I keep on trying. McKenna, you're awesome. I love it. Makes sense. Great. So it's 1:15. I guess we have to wrap up, but this has been so special. I want to thank you, Jordan, for coming today and for sharing so much and being part of our stuttering community. I hope you come more. You're welcome to stick around for the rest of our conference today. We have a lot of other things happening, and I think you'll be inspired by it as well.